All right, guys, on this episode of Point of Impact, we're here with Dustin from Faxon Firearms.
Hey there.
You guys have been on my list. I wanted to get you guys on from the get-go.
Yeah.
You're local, which makes this link up super simple. And I got exposed to you guys probably 3 or 4 years ago with a really lightweight rifle that felt great, next to no recoil for as light as it was, but I never bought anything. And this past year, and we'll get into you guys, I've got questions for you on the company and everything. But what put you guys on my list was I was building a competition rifle. I wanted to match the BDC on the optic I was running, which meant 18-inch to do it simple. It also gave me headroom on as far as velocity for accuracy. And y'all's gunner profile was just speaking to me. And it's been phenomenal. Absolutely love that barrel. So that's what put you guys on my personal radar. But then we HRT, we've worked with you guys on some giveaways. There's been some of the back and forth there. People have seen kind of our logos together on the sweepstakes and so forth. But how much do they know about you guys, the history? So let's just kind of start off there. You know, how long have you been with Faxon? Give us some of the history of the company.
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Faxon since 2019, so I'm in my 5th year. And I started really just in content marketing. And then I worked my way up, kind of took over digital media, and then marketing proper, marketing and communications proper, and then moved into now overseeing sales and marketing, which also includes customer service. But as far as the business is concerned, you know, we are a family-owned and operated business dedicated on manufacturing and engineering. The business is started by Bob and Barry Faxon, who are still there, they're brothers. They started in business together actually in the 70s. They started, I think their ages truly were 13 and 15. And they had an older brother who unfortunately passed away when they were kind of young, who started a shop called Faxon Machining in Northside Cincinnati. And it was just this kind of smaller shop. And they actually bought the company or the building and some of the stuff in it from a company called Weichel Arms, which did like muzzle loader barrels, I think, way back in the day. But they bought
old
it.
School.
Yeah, right. But they bought it to be an automotive shop. And, you know, after a series of things, and they start, you know, getting the business together, you know, their older brother David passed away, and it just kind of, the family just kind of kept going and kept, you know, moving with it. And so then they started, you know, machining parts, and they did a lot of automotive OEM for a long time, and ended up moving facilities a little farther north into a section called Forest Park, Ohio, which is, again, another Cincinnati suburb, just like we're in. And they started doing more different things. So they had automotive, DOD, aerospace, oil and gas, you know. So they went from I don't know, maybe a 12,000 foot facility, if that, you know, up to now Faxon Machining proper now is, I think, over 200,000 square feet manufacturing space. And but the reason the firearms brand started was they were really heavy in automotive. And, you know, I've heard Bob say this a million times, but, you know, every wave hits a shore, and automotive started to move offshore. And they were looking for work. They wanted to keep their machines busy. And they had an affinity for firearms and obviously the engineering pieces. So at this point, Faxon Machining is starting to look more into DOD, but at the same time wanting to create their own brand, because they spent the last, you know, 30 some years making parts for other people, you know, Chrysler, GM, you know, Ford, all these guys.
Now I want your own name on it.
Now you want your own name on it. But you know, when they first started, they were like, well, you know, we'll get into ARs and we'll see how that goes. So they start going to different trade shows and gun shows, and they went to SHOT and realized that it's a very saturated market. You know, there's even then, this is, you know, circa 2010-ish, 2009-ish. Already a lot of great products on the market, a lot of great brands on the market. And so the story goes, Bob comes home, I believe, from SHOT Show one year, and is just kind of discouraged. This is while they're still kind of figuring out what they want to do with it. And he's watching the Discovery Channel, and they do the top 10 battle rifles of all time. And it comes down to the AK-47 and the AR-15, and the AK wins out. And Bob does not like that. So he wants it, to be an American gun, right? So that night, with his two sons, Robert and David, who I now work with as well, he started sketching up the ARAC-21, which is our patented weapon system. It's a AR-AK hybrid, long stroke gas piston system, monolithic upper, drops on any mil-spec AR-15 lower. And that's what started the business.
I got to check that one out at SHOT Show this year. That is a tank of a setup.
Yeah.
It is solid.
Yeah. So, and because of that came the barrel manufacturing. You're making a bespoke firearm, a bespoke weapon system, and you gotta start making your own barrels. Otherwise, you're just gonna be shopping out for prototype barrels all the time and everything. And they had some really great people there at the beginning who helped, kind of with Bob and Barry, kind of find the way of the business, and realized that there was such a segment of the market that desired these aftermarket upgraded barrels, things that they could put into their ARs, just for the builders and plinkers, let alone competition and precision shooters and things like that. So the barrel line kind of, took off, and the parts and accessories, bolt carrier groups, pistol products. And the ARAC became, it was harder to scale, at that point. And so then, as you know, in business, years end up going by very quickly. The days are long, but the years are short.
Oh, yes.
And, all of a sudden you have this explosion in parts and accessories. And then right when I came in, we had launched, they had already launched some complete uppers and I think some handguns. But then we were coming to SHOT Show with a complete AR line. And this is SHOT Show 2020. So I think we had a goal of sell 500 guns in the first year, because we weren't known as a gun company, just a parts company, a barrel company. Well, the pandemic kicks us into overdrive, and we were doing a podcast at the time too. And I remember going into my first recording session, our dealers calling and we'll take everything
you got. We need it now.
So we blow by that first goal, of 500 guns or whatever, pretty quickly with that. So we were kind of jump started on the complete firearms line. And through that series of things, the scalability of the ARAC and the demand for the more general parts and how we became, known in the barrel market. Plus, we do a lot of OEM work as well. So you have all that sort of stuff playing. And, fortunately, we've kind of come full circle. The pandemic buying habits have kind of died off. I think we had a big normalization in 2023. And now there was time, it was like, okay, this is the time now we could reassess, ARAC.
What is the new baseline? What are the new pieces that are out there that people are looking for?
Correct, and as well as other products and innovation too. Because the original trademark of the company is quality, innovation, and service. And we also have a trademark on the term, the Fellowship of Firearms. We believe that, firearms bring together in a unique way that not other products or things or industries or hobbies do, as far as relationships, whether that's multi-generational relationships within a family, things that get passed down, from generation to generation, or even just bringing together people in the industry or people at the shooting club or whatever it may be, hunting, all those things. And so we were able to, actually take some time to get back to getting some new product and reevaluating things like the ARAC and going, what can we do to make this scale better? And because of the pandemic, we had planned to relaunch ARAC at SHOT Show 2020, and it went bananas. The whole market goes bananas. And so, it had to go on the back burner again. But now we've done some things. We've done some re-engineering to make assembly better. And because we didn't want to put the cart before the horse, we didn't make a big deal out of it, but we started shipping them again late last year. And all the dealers have now onboarded with them, and now we're making them and shipping them regularly again. So we're excited for that to be out on the market. But through that time, we got the 8.6 Blackout project. We're doing 22 ARC with Hornady. We launched our bolt action line, all those things.
The 8.6 is an interesting one because that one, yep. Not there yet, but
It's,
we'll start.
Oh, sorry, I was talking too much.
Yeah.
I got a little dry.
So one of the things that I wanted to do on my part of this series was, all right, pick a nice drink to have out here. You had mentioned a little bit in the bourbon and so forth, and this is just one that I picked as far as just an easy sipping Basil Hayden dark rye.
Well,
so,
salute.
Appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, so 8.6, yeah.
I've got a buddy drooling over the 8.6.
Yeah.
Wants it bad.
Yeah.
But he's like, all right, it's new, it's catching on, there's things happening with it, but how far is it going to go? Where do you guys see that really going with the subsonic long distance, hunting with it, you know?
Yeah. I have never seen, and I have yet to meet somebody who's seen a Wildcat cartridge take off like this.
It was crazy when you guys unveiled it.
And yeah, and the thing is with us, and you know, I did some other shows and interviews when we launched, and you know, the thing to remember is, you know, we didn't develop the round; we were just the first people who could make the barrels. 8.6 is predicated on a fast twist rate. You know, so
what is the twist? It's like
1 in 3.
That's what I thought. 1 in 3.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously fast.
It's 1 in 3, and the guys at Q specifically wanted something that could be button rifled at the time. So we were one of the first, if not the first, that was able to pull a 1 in 3 button. And so for those of you who don't know, I mean, you know, we make our barrels from bar stock, you know, from scratch. We're one of about 15 companies in the U.S. that do it. Just for barrel making in general. So sometimes we'll get people who ask us, who makes your blanks? Well, we make our blanks. Comes in as bar stock.
And that's rare, isn't it?
Yeah, like I said, from what I understand, about 15 or so different companies in the States that do so. A lot of others are going for blanks, forgings, and things of that variety, but we do it from bar stock. So, and that means that we get to control that process all the way through. The only thing that we send out for is heat treat and coatings. So we do stress relieving in-house, all the drilling, reaming, rifling, profiling, and through quality all the way to CMM and mag particle inspection and some of the quality things that we kind of took with us from our days with Faxon Machining that they used to do and still do on the DoD side. You know, mag particle is one of those things. But anyway, the stress that it puts on a button rifling machine to be able to pull that twist rate, you know, is pretty great. You know, so being able to really dial in that process was a huge deal. And because button rifling tends to be one of the most economical ways to rifle a barrel, and it's one of the most time-tested ways to rifle a barrel. And for those of you who haven't seen the process, you know, to me it just looks like this big, long, weird drill bit.
Yep.
You know, so you drill the stock, you ream it, and then you rifle it, and you pull like a reverse drill bit through this thing, and it's not really cutting as much as it's displacing material within the barrel, right? You're actually moving the structure of the steel down the bore of the barrel, and so to be able to do that successfully without burning out tooling and burning out your machines, you know, was certainly a big deal. Now, other people have caught on and they could do it. You could do it with cut rifling as well, but cut rifling is its own kind of gypsy voodoo. You know, but the 3 most common methods for rifling, you know, is button, cut rifling, and broach rifling. And there's stuff now, electronic probe and cold hammer forge and all those things too. But, you know, but we've been kind of known, you know, as being able to button rifle just about anything. So yeah, the Q had reached out to us, you know, about getting the barrels going, and they really wanted the round itself to take off. You know, not so much caring about what all brands are making barrels for it, or, you know, whatever. So fortunately, we were able to partner with them, and it really made the launch go big. But I remember we launched the barrels, at NRA 2022, opening day of NRA 2022. And I think we sold out in like 15 minutes.
Wow.
I mean, it was wild.
That fast.
Yeah. And so, we launched with 3 SKUs of AR-10 barrels and 3 different Rimage style bolt action barrels.
I remember you guys having the bolt action barrels then, but not the chassis.
Correct. We
you
didn't
guys
have the
have
full
now.
lineup. Yeah. So there for a while, we did a co-branded action with Stiller. And it was the FXR series, the Overwatch series. And that's what we launched with later that summer. So we had 3 AR-10s and 3 bolt actions. And that kind of sparked our interest because we had been doing OEM bolt action work for several years, but never really anything that was our brand. I mean, I think at one point we were doing like RPR barrels or something like that. But, as far as like a whole line, that was the way that we wanted to do it. We hadn't really done and kind of understanding, okay, does our audience, and our customer base and the people who are fans of the Faxon brand, is there an appetite, for bolt action from us? And so the way that we
How did you guys judge that? How did you make that determination that, yeah, going down a full bolt action, our own chassis, everything was?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, some of it is, we do surveys, we talk to our dealers, and also just take a pulse of the climate of the industry. And you started to see at the tail end of the pandemic, and especially now, because if you're at SHOT Show this year, I mean, you saw like, it's lever actions and pumps and all sorts of stuff, right? And bolt action is certainly in there. And you could attribute that to a lot of things. You could say it's just there's more people in the industry and more different styles and competitions or whatever are getting more publicity,
Right.
Whatever you want to say. But I think a lot of it was you had a lot of first-time gun buyers or people with renewed interest in firearms through the pandemic that then go, okay, what's next? I got my concealed carry, I got my first AR, I got my first shotgun.
Yep.
What else is there to do? I like this. And I think bolt action really goes to it. But for us, it was also wanting to make it our way. So much like our barrels, we make the actions in-house. So we're going, from raw billet or what have you, and we're making these actions, the bolts and everything in-house. And so to be able to give, an American machined and engineered product, sticking with our, MO, our ethos of being a high value brand. There's a difference between being a bargain brand and a luxury brand, if you want to call it that. And
The
being
Gucci
high value.
rifles.
Yeah, you got it. Like, it just doesn't really vibe with the Faxon family of just saying, well, I paid this much money for something. They truly understand. I mean, these are bootstrap American dream type people.
Right.
They want
The value's got to be there.
The value's got to be there. So you look at our action and to get all those features and the price point that we get it to, much like our barrels, much like our complete firearms, they have to fit that price value equation for it to make sense for us as a brand.
That's awesome. It's fantastic.
Because listen, there are surely easier ways to make money, but that isn't the MO.
It's not the way.
Yeah. That just isn't the MO of our business model and
You
what
had
we want to be.
mentioned the heirloom factor, the how it brings people together. It's funny. I wanted to say something when you had mentioned that, but I was like, no, you're
But
going.
I talk
so
too much.
I wasn't going to cut you off there. It's funny because when both of my kids were born, ended up buying a gun each time.
Yeah.
And they know which guns were bought when they were born. They know which ones they will inherit that will be theirs. The quality of a Faxon bolt action. Well, no, not then. Back then I was a whole lot younger, and finances was a whole different different situation.
Yeah.
But it's neat to see families brought together around firearms, just going out the shooting, the learning, training, the understanding of it.
Yeah.
it's always fun to get the kids out. I mean, and I've been eyeballing y'all's 1022 actions for a while, and just the complete rifle.
Yeah.
It's even been on my radar of as far as like for bang for the buck for what you're going to get from that.
Right.
It makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and I mean that's why too. Like we do the lifetime guarantee on all of our products, and that's that isn't just a marketing shtick. That's something that we believe. I mean, when Bob and Barry founded the business, ultimately their number one goal was they wanted it to be whatever they made to be safe. So that's number one, and then outside of that.
No dropping issues then.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You want things to be safe. You want things to be, of high quality, whether that's in the accuracy or the rigidity of the product. I mean, and that's spoken to in our first product in the ARAC 21. I mean, if you go look at some of the original release videos, you got guys like blowing this thing up with tannerite and freezing it on dry ice and, banging it against a tree and shooting it. Like you want this durability, you want this kind of ruggedness to it. But that plays in perfectly to the FX22 line, and when we launched Faxon Rimfire a couple of years ago, there was a bit of that was it was almost more of like a passion project because so many guys who when people know us for ARs, how many people who own ARs don't also have a 22 of some variety
or multiple 22s
or multiple, and then that became a whole other thing because you peel back the layers on the 22 crowd. Like there's so many different variants. You have your clinkers, you have your precision guys, you have your steel challenge guys,
the speed demon guys.
Yeah, you have your collegiate shooting teams. Then we started sending stuff to collegiate shooting teams. So that's been cool. So like Michigan State, Florida State, Oklahoma State, like they all shoot some Faxon stuff, and that was pretty cool to
awesome.
see.
I didn't know that.
But one of the things that like really hit for me was we'd get some emails every once in a while where it was like a dad who builds ARs with our parts doing 1022 builds with our parts, with their kid. And like that, like to me, like that sends it home. Like that's exactly what you're looking for. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that we say like it's a kid's gun or anything like that, but it's just like that sort of generational startup of going like this is a shared bond between parent and child or whatever that family dynamic is, in my opinion, is a big deal. And I think if you look back, I remember when we did our first like limited edition guns, they were AR-15s, and we did them to pay homage to different branches of the military. And I remember
I'm gonna have to go Google those now.
Check them out.
Didn't know you guys did that.
Well, we did until the pandemic hit, and then all of our parts were used for regular
production.
But we started with the Nautilus, which was basically built off of our Sentry, and it was a tip of the hat to the Navy. And then we did the Mustang, which was with the P-51 in mind, so it was all modeled after the P-51.
Okay.
And we were going like, what would it take to have somebody like hang an AR on their wall, like they were to hang an
piece
old
of art or something,
or something, or like their grandfather's shotgun, what would that look like and what would that need to be? And so that, that plays an important part of kind of our brand messaging and so on.
So for coming down the pipe for in the, the coming year, we've chatted through a few of them there. You'd mentioned the 22 ARC.
Yeah.
Walk through that one, because it's an interesting round. I mean, we've seen the 224 Valkyrie, we've seen other, higher powered, but still in the 224 caliber. The partnership there with Hornady, what you guys are doing with the ARC.
Yeah.
Why that route versus some of the other rounds that are out there?
Well, as I've told, I actually just saw Jason Hornady a few weeks ago. We just got off the trade show circuit. I think this is my first full week back in the office, and I drove up to.
You want a little more?
Yeah. We were me and Robert Faxon, Bob's son, have been on the road, I think, for the last 6 weeks, and we saw Jason at one of the shows. But just like Jason or Monty over there at Hornady, the guys we talk to a lot, whatever they're doing, I want in. Is basically what I tell them. Like, if you got something new cooking, I want in. And it was last summer-ish. they got in touch with us and like, hey, could you send us some Grendel bolt carriers? I'm like, sure.
What you got going
What
on?
are you doing? Yeah, and he called me and told me what was up. I was like, I want in. Let us get in. And I'll say it's a pleasure to work with Hornady because they really have their business act together. Like they mind their P's and Q's, and like the data packets and stuff they sent us to get started was impeccable.
Wow.
Like it was just great. I mean, sample reamers, ammo, spec sheets, like everything we needed to get started. And then put our own spin on it. It was just fantastic. We do 6mm arc, right? So, which is also, their cartridge. And so, yeah.
Not in an 18-inch gunner, though.
Not in an 18-inch gunner.
I told my buddy I'd mention that because he went with the 16. That's what you guys had.
Add it to the list, boys. Add it to the list.
He got the 16. And we were at a competition where it was a run and gun, so weight mattered.
Yeah.
And it was one of the few run and guns where there's a 1,000-yard shot involved.
Yeah.
So, six.
Add it to the list.
Yeah.
The HRT special, the 18-inch gunner for 6 arc. Well, and actually, I just did an interview earlier this week with Gun Digest about something else. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about with that. It should be out soon, but we did touch on 6 arc.
Keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, we did touch on 6 arc a little bit because he was asking me just how I thought it was going because the writer had felt that he had seen it a lot more, but it had been out for a little while and it was kind of just interested in its kind of rebirth or takeoff. And the thing that I reminded him was like that launched like right at the pandemic too. And same thing, all of a sudden boutique cartridges go down and everybody's buying up all the 5.56 and 9mm they can. And I think it's just kind of come full circle. And now I think it's getting the attention that it deserves. And they're applying a lot of the same science to the 22 arc that they did with the 6. And, the idea of it being softer shooting, being able to do precision at range, being able to do small and medium game hunting, and kind of bridging the gap between like a standard rimfire to the 22-250. So you get some really impressive, actually, if you go to our website, faxonfirearms.com/22arc, we have a link with all the stuff from Hornady on it. But they're, the accuracy curves, the ballistic charts that they're providing, it's pretty phenomenal. Like it's pretty cool to see this little projectile at up to pretty reasonably heavy weights, being able to do what it's doing on an AR-15 platform.
And that's the kicker there is they've done it in the smaller package. And it's funny that you mentioned the 22-250. I grew up on that cartridge, just my dad's era, the bolt action when you step up from 22s. That 22-250, like it stood the test of time, but now it's can we take that performance, tweak a few things with it, put it in the AR-15.
Right, and
so,
it's a simple switch. I mean, it's just, so Hornady's behind it. They got Sammy done very quickly. We were just in Phoenix for a show and went to a Bass Pro and a Shields. Shields already had ammo. We came back home. The Bass Pro by us already had ammo, here in Cincinnati. And, boom, like it's ready to go. They announced it at NASGW this past season, so that was late summer, early fall. And, a lot of press at SHOT Show. We had our mock-up builds and some of the sample barrels out. We started shipping barrels, I think, in late January, maybe early this month. Sold through our first production run.
When you guys sell out the custom, we sit here and we're waiting. We're just waiting for that to come back in stock.
Yeah, and like sometimes you never know, right? Like how many do we run on the first one? Like, is this going to be? But that shows, the power of how Hornady brings things to market. So I think they've got some really cool stuff, and it was a lot of fun to be able to take one of the guns to them at SHOT Show and kind of show them like, hey, this is what we're doing as the show specials this year, and all that sort of stuff. And then we could put our stamp on it, So we do a 20-inch flame fluted, which is one of our patents, the flame fluting.
I just picked up a 14.5 flame fluted.
Oh, did you?
Fluted, yeah.
Yeah.
It got, I think, delivered last week for a build. So.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Yeah. I mean, those sorts of things, like that's where it's fun. And we were talking before we started filming. I feel that people in the industry like to see when other companies partner together and do different things. And I mean, we're not the only barrel manufacturer partnering on 22 ARC, but we get to do it our way. All these other companies get to do it their way. And we're all kind of in this symbiotic relationship, with the ammo manufacturer, whoever it may be. But yeah, it's a very simple update. I mean, you just swap the barrel and make sure you have a 6.5 Grendel bolt carrier group and you're ready to go.
You mentioned the 6.5 Grendel bolt carrier, and there's lots of reports out there with the Grendel as far as challenging with the lugs and so forth. And it's one of those where buy the quality parts.
Yeah.
You've got to have a company that understands, the stress that bolt's going to go under. You are dealing with the thinner metal there, so just buying some off-the-shelf Grendel bolt may not be the best option there.
Sure.
Get a quality brand.
Yeah.
Get one that is designed to handle that stress.
Yeah, and that's something that, I think most people who are familiar with us know, but as far as like parts and accessories go, like outside of barrels, we probably move the most bolt carrier groups for parts and accessories once you discount barrels out of that equation. And part of the thing that we do is, we upgrade all of our steels. We do a full auto rating on all the AR-15 carriers. And we, do the super finishing process as well. So they're very slick, very high lubricity, but upgrading those steels and making sure they're full auto capable allows you to have, bolt carrier groups that could stand up to something that might be, even like 8.6, that's a 308, bolt head. So that's just a regular 308 carrier. So we actually, around the time 8.6 came out, we redid our 308 carrier to make sure that it could bridge the gap and effectively run 8.6 consistently.
Nice.
As well as keeping, 6.5 and 308 in step. Yeah.
The profiles and so forth on the barrels.
Yeah.
The flame fluted, you mentioned it. I didn't realize that you guys had that patent. It's a neat little profile to it. Not the weight savings of the gunner, but it's still an interesting, neat fluting, especially if the modern handguards are skeletonized. They're as thin as you can get them. So
yeah,
I don't want a SOCOM profiled barrel. Give me something a little bit nicer under there.
Yeah, that's a whole thing when it comes to profiles, and that's something I learned early on working at Faxon was like some of the first stuff I watched of people reviewing our products were doing like meltdown videos. And, people still get pretty squeamish about pencil barrels, for example.
I was for years.
Yeah.
Especially with suppressors and the weight, you're going to have point of impact shift, which is a thing,
Sure.
but it's predictable. It's a solid weight. As long as you put the same can on there, you know what it's going to shift.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, and that's something about, if there's any firearm entrepreneurs watching that want to start their own business, is that, and it's in a lot of industries, but I would say to a certain degree, especially in this industry, is that when you have something that is good and actually answers a question, solves a problem, you're not just telling somebody the truth. You have to debunk what they previously knew, right? And I think that was something that is perfect with 8.6 about, for example, rotational energy is not just about stabilization. Rotational energy could actually be, effective on the target as well, and do a variety of other things. But same thing goes with like the pencil profile. The pencil profile years and years ago, when people were first making them, that's before we knew what we knew now about metallurgy and what we know now about stress relieving and what we know now about heat treating and what we know now about even the coatings to use and
the only
how to
solution
rifle
then was just throw more metal at it and make it thicker, bigger, and heavier.
Right, exactly. And there's still a place for that. But but yeah, so like it would be these meltdown videos or what have you. And so with the gunner profile that you mentioned, we kind of wanted to bridge the gap, right? So it's, SOCOM before the gas block journal and pencil after the gas block journal. And so it allows you to do a couple of different things. Like I'm pretty sure you could still do like front sight bases depending on what length of barrel you get and what gas system. But you could do those things, but it reduces weight, but it's not quite as light as the pencil, right? And you have maybe a little less to account for if you add a can or something of that variety. But what it does is it takes that weight and it puts it back towards the shooter. So instead of putting all this weight out in front of you, right, you think of follow-up shots and target acquisition and just overall fatigue.
Yep.
But you still get some of that rigidity of a government or a SOCOM profile. The flame fluting was, something that Bob came up with because it is a variable depth fluting. So if you actually run your finger across our flame fluted barrels, once the flute starts until it ends down at the muzzle end, it never breaks the OD of the barrel. And the whole idea is, if you compare that to straight fluting, you're actually putting back material on these lines, that you're making the material thinner, right? So you're leaving less opportunities for stress. But overall, fluting is about reducing mass, increasing surface area for heat disposition. I like to think of it like an old computer heat sink or an old stereo heat sink, right? And then double bonus, it looks pretty cool. So you do have that, going for you as well. But yeah, I mean, flame fluting, the gunner profile, the performance of the pencil profile, that's what's used in the What Would Stoner Do rifle is our barrels in that. And then, we did the integral muzzle devices as well. And the integral muzzle device, which was probably that first lightweight that you saw, the FX 5500, the Ion, that uses an integral muzzle device barrel. Originally, that was just designed to replace pin and weld. It was really its main
I was blown away as far as the recoil control on that light of a rifle.
Yeah, the whole idea, so the Ion itself is an adjustable gas system. And we tune it in the shop, a lightweight bolt carrier group, and a carbon fiber handguard. And so that's where pretty much all your weight savings comes, plus a Mission First Tactical minimalist stock. Then we did the pencil profile with an integral muzzle device. So, like I said, the original idea with the integral muzzle device, so it's all one piece of steel. The muzzle device is milled into the barrel. Was just that, getting rid of the pin and weld element. But then what we realized too is, in the eyes of the ATF, that's a 16-inch barrel. Well, it's 16-inch overall, but it's very much like shooting a 14.5 with the muzzle device, right? So you get some weight savings there.
Yep.
And like you were saying, when you peel back the layers on these different audiences, the lightweight crowd, man, they love it when you shave a half a gram off of something. And so, like, by technicality, we were taking some weight out of the barrel without having to do the pin and weld. Because we actually used to do pin and weld as a factory option. You used to be able to get a factory pin and weld from us, and then we switched to the integral. So it's done a couple of things, and then since we do ported brakes and an A2 style flash hider, a lot of competition shooters are still able to use them, for competitions that have pretty strict rules about what type of brakes or what type of flash hiders you could have. So it ended up being a gift that kept on giving, which has been very cool. But yeah, the profiles, the way that we always put it, whether it's the profile you're looking for, the series you're looking for, you always got to ask yourself, what is the end goal of the firearm? What is its duty? What is its purpose? And then you need to build around that.
And that's one piece that some people, it just, the rifle, what was the purpose of it? It just ends up being a kind of a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually you got there, but if you'd have put more thought into it from the beginning, and that leads into one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask.
Yeah.
For those that are out there that are, maybe they've got an AR, or they're looking for their first, or they're looking for, all right, kind of learn from this first one, now let's go for number 2 and maybe get it a little bit better. What's your thoughts? Select the parts and have a purpose behind it, or you've already done that, come look at our rifles because we've kind of tailored to this, and this kind of a mission set, if it's a home defense setup, or if it is just a general plinker.
Yeah.
Which way do you tend to recommend folks most? That's
a great question.
The build it yourself with a purpose, or come look at our factory builds?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we actually do our factory builds in basically 2 sets. There's what we call the first line, and then the summit line. And the first line is more of your more price conscious complete firearm, complete AR. We have two guns in that series, the Ascent, which is in a 5.56, and the Bantam, which is a 9mm PCC. And those are to be kind of the gun that grows with you. The way I put it is you'll never be dissatisfied with the heart of the gun, because it's still our barrel, still our bolt carrier group, our handguard, our enhanced forged receiver set. We take out price by keeping things like duty series barrels, so still made in-house and everything, but they're going to be your SOCOMs or your light tapers in the 9mm. But then everything else is like just mil spec. Furniture's mil spec, trigger's mil spec, charging handle's mil spec. So if you're not ready to build, but you want something that all like the quote unquote hard stuff is done,
right,
and it's going to run, and it's going to fire and cycle, and you don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, which buffer do I use, and all that sort of stuff. But you want to be able to go, I want to upgrade the stock now. I want to put a new pistol grip on now. I want to swap the trigger, swap the charging handle, whatever. It's ready-made for you, and we're not spending the money for you. The Summit line in the AR-15s is more like duty built out of the box. So the Ion, and then last year, the year before, we introduced the Ion X, which is the kind of the second generation Ion, where we go back to a threaded barrel, because so many people kept calling and saying, I still want to put a can on an Ion, So we went back to a threaded barrel on that. We did some more aesthetic milling to the receiver set that took out some weight. We didn't want like a race gun. We didn't want anything that opened up any reciprocating parts. Yeah, we didn't want to do that. But something that for our dealers looked different off the shelf, and for the end consumer, something that was unique and did give you some more weight savings. So like your Ion, you want to go lightweight, but still be able to run efficiently and not have an overly finicky firearm. We're talking 4.95 pounds for the regular Ion, 4.93 for the Ion X. And, that's the way to go there. The other one in the Summit line for us is the Sentry. And the Sentry is more your general training and your like defense and duty type rifle. Okay. So actually when we do LEO work, we generally send a Sentry as the T&E gun. Gotcha. And then they kind of start modeling off of the Sentry. So the Sentry comes with a gunner profile. It comes with upgraded furniture. It comes with an upgraded trigger. It comes with, ambi safety and ambi charging. A muzzlock, one of our original muzzlock muzzle devices is on there. So there's really two camps. There's people who want something out of the box, and I mean, let's face it, it's AR-15. If there's something you don't like about it, you could ultimately change it. But then literally there's not a gun of ours you couldn't build by also buying the individual pieces from us or from one of our dealers. So, but yeah, I always try to steer people into what do you want it to do? Do you have an end goal? People are like, oh, I'm using this for my truck gun, or, I'm using this for my training rifle, or I'm going to go shoot PRS with this, or whatever, now that we're getting into bolt action, whatever it may be. And so, yeah, I if people really have that question, other times it's folks who are like, I'm going to make this thing as light as possible. What do you got? Or
well, over here.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple of different ways to do it, but also too, like and you had mentioned like how we make the decision to get into bolt action. Some of it is to just as a business, how do you expand your industry market share? And do you have something to provide? What
makes you different? How do you guys?
Yeah. Do you answer a question, or are you creating questions that
don't need an answer?
Right? Yeah. And so that's really kind of the MO that it goes through. The thing that we'll say a lot in the office is, is this a Me Too product? And there's a certain amount of Me Too products that are needed to round out a line, right? To round out a complete offering.
But you still need that heart, that piece that is you.
Yeah, and I'm a very big fan of halo products. And in that I mean, for example, and if any of my team is, watching this later. They're going to roll their eyes with me saying it. But, because I say it a lot. The Viper, Dodge Viper, sold a lot of minivans. Sold a ton of minivans. Way more minivans than it probably sold Dodge Vipers. And the idea is that, like, it's that same pedigree that's now being put down into a product that's accessible to me. And so that's why when people look at us on the manufacturing side, it's like, hey, listen, like, Bob and Barry, like, these guys have done defense work. They've done aerospace work. They have parts on Mars and parts on the ocean floor and parts that support the warfighter.
Right.
And
when it comes to manufacturing, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. And so, like, to me, that's kind of like the Halo marketing. And then the Halo products would be like, that's your Ion. That's what they use in the Ion. That's what they use in the What Would Stoner Do rifle.
Right.
That's the same people who made the ARAC. All those things, like, you never want to, at least for us in our business, we don't want to make a product that's just a caricature or a mascot. It needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet. But there is something to be said about having a little bit of aspirational marketing there and being able to show, like, hey, like, you could believe in us all the way down here.
Right.
To your
but then we've got
gas
this level
block,
2 for you
but
to,
we have
for you
this
to reach
level,
to.
right? That you feel, and that you feel comfortable that the gas blocks are going to be good because I know that this is good. I know that the bolt action's good. I know that the ARAC's good, or what have you.
So we've walked down a fair bit of the line here that you guys are manufacturing. What's new? What do people not know that's coming that you're willing to kind of bring up and chat through here?
Good stuff. So one of the first things is that the FX19s are getting a Gen 2 treatment. So we launched the FX19s.
And those were not out at SHOT. Those were not on display to be messed with, were they? The Gen 2s?
We had them in a box. We had them in a glass.
box.
We had them in a plexiglass box.
I didn't get to play with that. I got to mess with the ones on the floor.
Yeah.
But no,
yeah. So the regular
no one mentioned
FX19s. Yeah. So basically, the FX19s really just took very wonderfully, to the market. And but I'm telling you, the handgun landscape, top to bottom, whether it's full firearms or parts and accessories, has changed so drastically in the last 5-10 years. And so, when the FX19 came out, it was like the Gucci Glock movement was like huge. Everybody
was doing it.
Everybody making their own and buying individual pieces and kind of, it was like the AR-15 of handguns, was this Glock Gen 3 style, G19 style firearm. And so the original thing with the FX19s was we could give you that quality and that feature set plus a little more out of the box cheaper than you could build it by yourself, and sourcing all those parts independently. Upgrading your trigger, upgrading your slide, upgrading to a match series barrel, for the Hellfire, at least putting a mag extension on, suppressor height and night sights, whatever it may be. And so we had partnered with Polymer 80 on the frame. So they did the frame design for us, and it was based off the PF940C frame. And but the market has changed so drastically. Like right now, if you go and you have $600 burning a hole in your pocket, you could find a pretty wide variety of very full-featured firearms. So it's a two-step process for us. One was making sure we're being efficient and bringing our costs down, so we could then secure the dealers what they need and secure the end consumer a high-value product, which is RMO. And so what people may have seen last year was mid-last year, we changed our pistol barrel pricing. We actually dropped our pistol barrel pricing, I think by an average of 20% across the board, while still maintaining the dealer margin. We have become more efficient in our pistol barrel manufacturing, that it doesn't cost us as much to make pistol barrels as it used to.
And what you would normally see is a company just purely profit on that, not pass that along to the customer.
Yeah,
like that's
and like part of it is too, like that's where, this is such a tired expression, but it's so cheesy. But I'm gonna say it anyway. Who's that like TED Talk guy, Simon Pethelik or whatever his name is?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Glasses guy, does motivational speaking.
Yep.
He goes, the prime operative of a business is not to make money. You know, it's to actually do something, right? It's to actually stake a claim in the ground and to saturate or become a household name or whatever that is for you. And he equates it to, you don't buy a car for the sake of you need something to put gas into. You know what I mean? The money is a byproduct of it.
Right.
And if we're going to stay true to our DNA, it's never been about gouging anybody for anything. Don't get me wrong, we want to be a great place to work. We want to.
You got to make money. It's got to be a factor.
You got to make money, but when you have the opportunity to do right by the customer, you always do right by the customer. And our customer is the end consumer as well as our dealer network, our distributors, our international distributors. We have 3 guys over in Germany right now at EWA, you know. So anyway, we brought the pistol barrel price down. We got cost out of our slide manufacturing, so we brought those down, 2 of the most expensive components. Then we went back to the drawing board and totally redesigned the frame. And so what was at SHOT Show were actually just very nice 3D prints, like they weren't actual first articles, you know, of the actual frame. So we didn't want people like, oh, this trigger feels funny. And it's like, that's because it's rubbing on the trigger guard because it's a 3D print. But to give people an idea of the ergonomics and the looks. So when those come out, price is coming down on those guns. And frankly, same feature set, if not a little better.
When do you think those are coming out?
We start shipping in June.
Okay.
So dealers have been starting to pre-order. And with that, we've added a couple of more guns to the line. So we have a 19X version of both the Hellfire and the Patriot that are coming out. So you get that longer grip and so on. And then we also are introducing the FX19 Duty, which is, I want to say that right, Duty with a T.
Gotcha.
And it's kind of, it hybridizes the slide design to kind of bridge the gap between the Hellfire and the Patriot.
Okay.
But it is and we put a Duty Series barrel into it. And it becomes a very price conscious, but still full-featured firearm. So your Patriot and your Hellfires are slight step-ups, and the X's are slight step-ups from there. And then we're working on, everybody's putting together their wish list of like a fully kitted gun. You know, what does the 19X look like fully kitted? You know, put one of our Exos comps on there, put one of the modular mag extensions on there. You know, we've talked to optics companies about putting optics on it. You know, doing a different trigger treatment.
I'll be keeping my eye on that. See what you guys come out with.
I'm very excited for it because you know we do. I mean, we do a lot of sales in the pistol area, subcompact especially. Now later, June is for the whole kind of FX19 series, but later we are looking at doing a subcompact as well. And I believe a 17 footprint style.
I was going to say, no full size yet?
Yeah, so the full size would be in there.
You know
what's crazy is like if you've ever looked at like the NSSF like scope reports, I think it was the one they put out last year. I think they're late in the year in collecting all the data, so I guess this would be for 2022. You know, the G43 basically took 2 of the top 5 spots for the most popular handguns sold. As far as like NICS checks.
43 and 43X.
You got it. It was like 43, something else was number 2, and number 3 was 43X. And then you see everything that goes on with 365 and MP Shield. And same thing for us. You know, a couple of years ago, we launched the subcompact barrels. And oh my goodness, talking about a market that's taken off, whether it's for everyday carry and people now wanting to customize and upgrade, you know, the parts and accessory side. There's subcompact kind of everyday carry competitions now. It's wild.
I mentioned it on one of the other interviews as well. One of the competitions that I love is the running guns, where it's you know 5K, 10K, what have you. There's actually concealed carry running guns now.
Yeah.
Where you're just looking like a regular guy, and then all right, are you running a backpack gun or what? For your rifle.
Right.
But then your handgun is something that you would daily carry.
Right.
And it's interesting from a competition side, but then also that's phenomenal training with your carry gun, your carry
100%.
holster.
You're doing something for recreation, but it's also benefiting you.
Yeah.
You know, like there's actual cross training that goes along with it.
I love my competition stuff, but that's an outside the waist drop holster. it's purely for speed.
Yeah.
You're not fighting your clothing. You're not trying to get something out of concealment. So to even see that side go to that, it was neat to see some of those starting to break out.
Yeah.
And again, then you start to see, all right, how far can we start tweaking and working with even the carry gun lines.
Yeah, because most people will tell you, like if they do a full size or a compact, like in competition or what have you, or that's just what they prefer to shoot, target shooting wise or training wise. Not always a fan of subcompact, right? And you got guys that, like we had some guys in our office that are like, these are big dudes. Like I wouldn't want to talk bad about their mama, like that. But then seeing a subcompact in their hand, I'm like, that has got to be uncomfortable, And so anything to dial that in and make it a more comfortable shooting experience, that's part of the reason, like out of all the fancy stuff we've done, one of my favorite products we've ever put out is the Exos pistol compensators. You thread that thing on, you set the set screws, Loctite it on the muzzle threads if you'd like, but it flush fits with the slide. You don't have to change your recoil spring.
I have one.
Yeah, you reduce recoil by like 28% versus a bare muzzle.
Yeah.
And your felt recoil, or your muzzle flip rather, and then your felt recoil is reduced as well. And I remember the guys going out and testing the prototypes and such, and they would go and test some other, competitor comps on the market. And what you found with subcompact was either they weren't really compensating all that much, or they were compensating so much that you had a lot of failures, stovepipings and failures to feed or what have you. And
when a carry size gun, that you can't handle that.
Yeah,
it's got to run.
It's got to run, and the thing is to be able to shoot a subcompact firearm like a Shield, like a 365, a 43, and have that game changer. Like especially if you're running in a competition. I mean, it's just like it takes so much of that felt snappiness, even some of that mental snappiness. You just like feel better because you're bracing for it.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
for years I carried the 26, and as soon as they came out with the 43X, I sold the 26.
Yeah.
That little bit of extra grip, it makes a huge difference on how it recoils and how it feels in the hand.
Right.
And then add a comp on that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now you're starting to feel more like a normal sized firearm.
Yes.
Even though it's compact, even though you can conceal it, even though it's thin. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, lots of good stuff. We have more bolt action coming out. Just about a month or two ago, we actually started shipping our first profiled blanks. People have asked for years, could you just sell us a blank?
And
so
let them profile it how they want.
Yeah, let them do it how they want. So we have our first 3 SKUs are up and active right now of profiled blanks. We have all the barreled actions. We added a couple more 8.6 bolt action offerings as far as on chassis or on stock. So those are all up and going. Obviously, shipping ARAC again has been a big deal. So all of your major retailers and wholesalers have been getting shipments pretty regularly. A couple have picked up exclusives. So, take a look around at that for special colors and whatnot.
So what's been the challenge this year? Is it inventory and just with the lineups expanding, keeping things in stock, or are there other pieces that have been a challenge for you guys right now?
So the challenges as far as like the kind of like the operations side, I think we did see a lot of smaller dealers, and I'm not saying we proper, I mean royal we in the industry. You did see a lot of dealers that did not survive the summer last year. 2023 was kind of rough for different dealers and different folks, and whether that be, I was in Illinois last month visiting some customers, and they have their own gun law stuff going on, so you have that going against you. Washington got hit pretty hard as well. So you have that going against you, and then
I was just watching some Supreme Court decisions that have come down the past couple of days earlier.
I mean,
the landscape's changing.
And then early last year, you had the pistol brace ban hit again, and then get lifted again, and all these things. So there's always a certain level of uncertainty, and then some of the buying habits had changed, and I don't want to say died off. I mean, some have died off, but it isn't just going an inch wide and a mile deep in your product offering like it was for almost 2.5 years. Their interests are widening again. So much like we talked about 6R seeing an uptick, we saw an uptick in all non-5.56 cartridge products last year.
Interesting.
So 300 Blackout, obviously 8.6, which is kind of in a silo by itself, but continue to increase interest there. But AR-10 got real hot again. Even like weird things like 7.62 for AR-15. Like people were they were looking. They wanted to go wider. So, and then you have just the economic struggles in general, right? A lot of people just without that kind of disposable income.
Becoming more selective on what they're
becoming more
picking up.
selective, and then you got to go wide, and then a lot of, especially brick and mortar dealers, so if you hear anything from me, go support your brick and mortar dealers, because those are a lot of times family-owned businesses and places that, probably got stuck with kind of pandemic style inventories that now they got to get out from under so they could go wide again and readjust theirs. So I think that has been a thing. That's something I think the whole industry has had to deal with, as well as legislation and rules changing. For example, we had to cut off all direct-to-consumer sales to the state of Illinois. I mean, by the letter of their statements, we couldn't even sell like a handguard
at all. Just done.
I mean, you just can't. And like we feel terribly about it. Luckily, we have dealers in Illinois that could still kind of mind the P's and Q's and get them what they can have. But they're limited in what they can do. So you have those things kind of batting against you. And then for us, it's been more just like, are we getting our inventory spread right to be able to serve the dealer network and the end consumer correctly? So you kind of go through a slump in the summer of last year. The pandemic buying habits kind of phase off. You get some weird legal things happening that change some of the business. But fortunately, we're all still here.
I was going to say, you guys have adapted well to it. There's new stuff coming down the pipe.
And I think right now that is, as much as it could be a challenge, as a breath of fresh air, getting back to the innovation and the product expansion. Because if you're not changing, if you're not doing new things, you're going to die. And the same thing goes with, even things that have been on the catalog for 10 years. If they're by themselves and all you want to do is make the same 10 barrels over and over again, well, you either got to make them better or you got to make them cheaper.
You got to do something.
Otherwise, they're just going to be what they are. So if you want to grow as a business, you got to be able to do these other things. And whether that was like everything as simple as subcompact barrels and the Exos comps, to really diving headfirst into bolt action, getting ARAC up and going again. All of those things are, they're leaps of faith, but it helps you kind of spread your wings as a brand and get into more places. Because I'll tell you, like, for example, with the ARAC, what the ARAC's perfect for as well? California.
Checks all their boxes?
It's an upper. The ARAC itself is an upper, and the upper ships with a ported brake, no flash hider. All right, so when I'm talking to these dealers at these buy group shows, California tickled pink about ARAC, which 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when they brought it out, that wasn't really on the checkbox. Did we make something for California?
Right, just happenstance.
It just, it happened to happen. Same thing like our Muzzlock muzzle devices. Muzzlock was originally just so you didn't have to do crush washers and shims, and it was easy to remove, so you could like disassemble your firearm or clean your target crown, and just easily swap muzzle devices.
How jumped up the crown gets.
Oh yeah, it gets, especially like if you pin and weld or something. Yeah. Anyway, so you get that, but you know what else it's taken a foot in? Suppressors are more available. People are getting approved faster. There's more on the market. You have great companies that are making great cans, and some of them are like Otter Creek. Otter Creek's just like this guy in Kentucky. He's crazy. He's making these excellent cans. You got Silencer Central. You got Silencer. You have Rugged. All these people, and more cans are out in the wild in these last few years. But not everybody has a can for every gun. So instead of breaking off crush washers and everything, you're just going and taking off your muzzlelock, putting on your can, or vice versa, and swapping and getting out. And so finding those niches for existing product, and kind of finding what else the industry wants and what the end consumers want. Like, a couple of years ago, we put out 12.5-inch and 13.9-inch barrels. Really random. Seems really random in a vacuum, but people are like, no, like with my can, and I'm recessing it in my handguard, and I'm looking to get this pressure curve, and I'm looking, I want to adjust the gas like this. We did 1 and 5 twists, 300 blackout barrels, like 6-inch and 7.5-inch, like real tiny guys. Ended up in the last 6 months, it's one of our top 10 selling barrels.
Really? Wow.
And this is just months after pistol brace ban gets lifted. So, yeah, I mean, it's the agility is such a big thing, and that is not an easy task, especially when you're manufacturing your product. There's capital expenses, there's machine time.
That is not an easy lift and shift to go from one to the next.
No, it's not software as a service, where you change the code and you go on. No, all these things have to go through product and quality and testing and manufacturing, and all of them need their drawings and their call outs, and there's a ton that goes into it.
I know as a customer of you guys, I appreciate all the time and the QC and the R&D that you guys put into the products. I've only got a handful of them right now, but so far I've loved every single one that I've picked up from you guys.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that.
We've chatted a fair bit on the company, but now for you, what is your favorite firearm? What would be your go-to, whether it's yours or even a competitor's because it's something you don't manufacture?
Let's see. I will say that I am a bit of a sucker for historical firearms. I did get the benefit to go with some of our team down to visit CMP in Alabama, and to go and see just these racks and their assembly of M1 Garands.
You didn't go through the process and like build your own in their program?
No, I didn't do that. But just like some of them, because it's like, like to just, like, especially like the M1 Garands they have right now, a lot of them like came out of the Philippines and all that sort of stuff. And to just be able to go like some GI, it's probably
the history.
19 years old, and just in a trench or in the jungle or wherever he was, it just like, that just, that's a chill factor, number one. So I do have an affinity for the historical firearms, even the weird ones, like the duck foot and all that. I think that's supremely interesting. As far as our stuff, it would have to be the ARAC. I think it's one of the most unique things that we do, and one of the most unique things on the market, and I love the story of it. I love what the Faxons have been doing with it, and we're trying to do with it from the inception. Those would probably be my favorite. I do get a kick out of handing people like one of our full AR-10s, super heavy, and then like putting an ion in their hand. That's always a fun party trick. I personally own one of our I personally own one of our FX19 Patriots. So that I bought that shortly after I started at the company. But yeah, so the favorite with the company, I'd probably say ARAC. Outside of that, I really love those old service rifles. There's just something Americana and proud about it, but just the history and the provenance behind it, and knowing that there's groups and organizations like the CMP who make sure that that history lives on. And they do all the rifles for like the ceremonial rifles and stuff too. I mean, what a noble enterprise. Like, anyway, can't say enough good things about them.
I've got a buddy that went through their program where you come in, you select your rifle, and then you go through and you accurize it. And from what he said, it's highly recommended if you can take the time to go do that, and you end up with just a smooth shooting, rebuilt, but yet still a piece of history. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah, I would have to put that up there. I know, like, we got guys in the office, they have, they have Macs and all the, whatever it may be, the guys who have stamps and everything, like, and that stuff's fun too. And I enjoy it, but yeah, something about the historical provenance is something that's truly unique, and something that has a good story behind it, I'm always a sucker for. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've been at it for a while now, Dustin. I want to say thank you. I appreciate you coming down here, taking us the time.
My pleasure.
I've learned a lot about Faxon just from the history, how you guys started, which is, it's an incredible story. I don't know if that's there on your About section of the website.
Yeah, yeah. If you go to faxonfirearms.com, just click
failed.
Faxon Story. It's over there. Yeah, it's and we did a big interview with Bob a couple of years back that kind of walks through everything. And but yeah, it's a wonderful family to work for, and a wonderful organization. And it's a lot of fun. We were at when we were out in Arizona, Robert and I needed a gun rest for the display. Forgot a gun rest. So we drive out to a Bass Pro outside of Phoenix. And we're wearing our work shirts. And some counter worker at Bass Pro in Phoenix recognizes us. And, for a company that 12 years ago was just trying to start something,
Right.
to be able to travel like that and to be able to go, like, we have a lot of business like in Poland and Austria and all this sorts of stuff. We get tagged and stuff, and I can't read it. I got to do Google Translate.
Google Translate.
Yeah.
What are they saying?
And we're a family-owned business in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that just, there's nothing that replaces that. I think on this last loop that we did, just on the back leg of traveling, I think we were stopped no less than 4 or 5 times just by seeing the logo on our shirt.
And just wanted to chat,
Just wanted to
about the
talk about it,
products and their experience.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Guys, hope you enjoyed it. We're looking to do more of these in the future. We're going to reach out to other companies that resonate with us, the history, and even just ones that are local and ones that aren't. But you guys were top on our list, so
Totally our pleasure. Thank you so much.
So that'll be wrapping up this episode of Point of Impact. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Get in the comments. Let us know if you've got any other questions. We can always fire them your way. Hopefully you see them there as well.
Please do.
All right, guys. Take care. Appreciate you watching.